Hi everybody, it's Kelly again with Homesteading Hints, and today we're going to be talking about one of our hobbies, I guess, that Libby and I have, which is growing iris. And we have well over 150 different varieties, and we do a lot of, I guess we have iris all over in all of our flower beds. It's our favorite flower, and we actually do a little bit of wholesaling them to the garden center and things like that. So some of you know that some of our varieties are at the garden center usually every year. And today we're going to just show how we go about splitting and transplanting iris, and I'll go through the steps of how we do that. And actually right now is the time to do that. It usually is. I usually do it at the end of July, beginning of August, because your rhizomes tend to harden off at that time. All of their expansion is usually pretty much done by then, and so you can split them. The rhizomes are solid instead of soft, and you'll have less insect damage when you do it, when you wait until this time. And they usually transplant really well. They don't require a huge amount of moisture, so if we have a dry time, it really doesn't affect them much. And in actuality, we got a lot of rain a couple of nights ago, so that doesn't matter too much. But it doesn't matter if they had good wet soil or dry soil to go into. They usually transplant very well. We try not to keep them too wet any time of the year, because the iris borers actually have a huge are a huge problem when we get too moist of ground around our irises. So it's always kind of nice to keep them a little bit more dry if possible, which isn't always possible, obviously. But I went ahead already and I loosened these all up, but I'll kind of show you how we go ahead and pop them up, which they're very simple. They are planted very shallow, which all of these are bearded iris actually. All the bearded iris are planted very shallow, and you really don't have to hardly cover them, and we'll go through that part as well. So here's what we do. Like I said, I've already actually got them free, but just so you can see what we do, I'll take the shovel and just skim underneath and pop them up, and you just go underneath and pop them free, and until you basically feel that all the roots are free on it. And I've got that part done, and I'll go in here, and this is a couple of rhizomes. I can pull some of these other ones out of here. This is actually a really good chunk of a rhizome as well. And if I was going to do this, and this one we're planning on moving. It's actually been shaded out over the last couple of years and hasn't bloomed, so we're planning on moving it to a different spot in the garden. So just kind of using this one to show everybody. It's, as I said, they're very shallow. It's very simple. You can see that there's hardly any roots down lower than, I don't know, maybe 4 inches. And I'm going to pull them all out of here right now, and I will show you a little bit of iris borer damage and some damage due to them needing to be transplanted, which iris are a plant that needs to be transplanted usually every 4 to 6 years, sometimes more than that, because they actually overgrow themselves. And I can show you that right here. As you can see, this is a chunk of several rhizomes. See how this one's actually just grown on top of the old one. This is the old one, and this is a young one that's grown in on top of it. And you can see, you can actually just pull them apart. There's a little bit of a tick there where it broke off, but that's how you pull them apart. It's very simple. You can see there's actually what would be the parent plant right here, and a couple of the young ones coming off of the back side of it. So we'll use this one. I'll just kind of show you on it to put it back in. But before we do that, here is some iris borer damage. It's been healed over, but it is right in underneath there where they bored through it. And some of this is tissue that the rhizomes aren't doing very good. Like this is soft. We'll end up throwing that out, and I would suggest throw it all out that's not good. This one actually has one good rhizome right here, and there's a couple of youngsters off the back side of it that you can see right in here, and one over here that we'll keep. But I'll get rid of this because it's not very good. And so you can just pull them right off. It's actually quite simple. And so this one actually is a parent to 1, 2, 3 babies right there, a 4th one coming on there, and a 5th one coming on here. So quite a few on that one. We're not going to split them out completely. We'll probably put this clump back in as a whole. Now, if we were separating completely, we would take all these, and the only one I wouldn't pull off would be that one and this one. Otherwise, you probably pop all these out, and you could keep all those separate from each other, and you could end up with 4 or 5 different rhizomes out of that.
But which ones will bloom, though?
Well, okay, so yes, blooming, we usually figure that anything with 5 or more leaves we'll plan on blooming next year. So like none of these, like this has 3, this has 1, this one has 3. The middle one actually has what it looks to be about 4, though I would guess that it will probably bloom. If it doesn't, it would be awful close to blooming. Let's see, we have one here that we could show you for sure that's probably going to bloom. I would say this one will probably bloom, and I just tore off one of the dead leaves on it, so there's actually 6, and there's another, well, 7, there's 6 on it right now, so that would have been a 7th one. So this one's probably going to bloom next year. And I can show you one that has bloomed. Let's see, where's he at? Right here. Now this one has a bloom right off of it right here. That's probably from last year. I think it bloomed last year. This would have been the one time it bloomed. Now, once the rhizome blooms, it won't bloom ever again. It just becomes apparent to other rhizomes that come off of it. So this is absolutely not ever going to bloom again. You can obviously, as you can see, it's still producing children. There's still more coming off of there, smaller ones. There were some coming off this side. This one won't bloom again, but you could save it if you wanted to. I probably won't, because we have enough other good fans, you know, this one and this one together and this right here, that we'll be able to use those as our parent plants. Okay, so I have some scissors, and we're not going to put this right back in the hole, but I will show you, since we're here, how to plant them. So we're not, you know, having to go through and on the other side of the house where we're planning on putting these. But you, as anybody that's purchased some of the bare root rhizomes, they'll notice when they come in that they're usually cut in what's called a fan type of a look, and usually just kind of cut them like that, about 4 inches up, and usually take off any of the leaves that aren't looking so hot or are done like that. I'll snip off this little one and kind of just get those out of the way. If you were wanting to, you could, and you were going to say send this someplace in the mail, ship it to somebody, you would want to let it dry out before you put it into anything, because it's still got a little bit of mud on the bottom of it. But you would want to get all that off, let it dry out, kind of scrape it out of there, shake it free before you send it anywhere.
Do you wash or bleach or anything?
Well, you can. Yeah, I mean, we don't usually bleach them, but I have heard they take and bleach them, and that gets rid of possibly some of the borer eggs that could be possibly stuck in underneath of there, things like that. We usually just let them dry out. You could wash them too. We usually don't do that either, because that tends to kind of soften up the tissue a little bit. I'd rather keep it hardened off like this, so letting it dry out is actually better than washing it. But this one we have kind of cut down. Now, if you plan on moving it around, you can take a little bit off the roots off the bottom as well. Kind of give it an upside down haircut, I guess. And also, like go through, like this one has a piece of grass in it that's grown in underneath. You'll want to pull that out. Otherwise, if you take it with you, you're going to end up with grass right in there right off the bat as well. So try and get it as clean as you can. Okay, now we'll go over to where we would be putting it back in. And this is all kind of crumbled up already. And it's pretty simple to just take it and work it down in a little bit, cover the roots up some, and actually leave it about like that. Maybe pack it in a little bit. That is about the height you want to set your iris. This rhizome stays up above the soil so it doesn't get soft on you. Doesn't promote the softness in the rhizome to where the borers can get in and chew on stuff. And also it can rot. So especially in the soils we have around here, which are largely clay, or a large percentage clay mostly. What's that?
Or not bloom.
Yeah, actually yes. If they go too deep, they also may not bloom. So if you're having issues where your iris aren't blooming, it's either going to be because you haven't split them in a while and they're starting to overgrow each other, and when they do that, they kind of don't have enough strength to push out a bloom stalk. There's just not enough nutrients fed into them because they're competing with each other, or they can have been planted too deep and covered up too much. Like if you did something like this and you planted it like that and packed it in real good, that's way too deep. You need to be able to see this rhizome, and you need to be able to just kind of cover the roots, and that's about it. And that will give you the best blooming process as well as the healthiest for your rhizomes. So this is, like I said, one of our hobbies that we have, and we enjoy iris quite a lot, and we'll continue to grow them and put them in different spots in our yard and split them all around. But this one's going to be going to a more sunny side of the yard, so that's what we'll plan on doing with it. So if you have any questions or anything, just call Ted's or send an email or anything like that, and we'll try and get your questions answered. But thanks everybody for watching. Until next time, have a good one.